Hello, my name is William Michael Cunningham, and this is the 2021/22 Black Economic Forecast. We will start with the review of economic conditions nationally. We will drill down to review economic conditions in the state of Texas, both for Black businesses and for businesses in the state overall. We will look at Texas corporations and their corporate social responsibility. We will close by making some suggestions concerning business opportunities for Black businesses, not only in the state of Texas, but nationwide, and also with our usual investment recommendations for 2022. Now, our review of economic conditions in the state of Texas and for Black businesses in general starts at the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. Their summary of economic activity shows a solid expansion, with COVID-induced labor and supply chain constraints active, of course. But according to a National Association of Business Economists survey, two-thirds of the members of that organization expect to see economic activity increase by between 3 and 6% over the course of the next 12 months. They say that because manufacturing and non-financial services sectors are strong. Retail sales and home sales have risen. Loan volumes are higher. And with increasing gasoline prices, we know that the energy sector is experiencing robust growth. In addition, agricultural conditions are strong. Employment growth is robust and wage growth is highly elevated amid a widespread value of life and work reevaluation that is ongoing in the labor sector in the United States of America. This is due to the fact that the labor force has observed the deaths of 700,000 of their fellow workers over the course of the COVID crisis. This has caused people to reevaluate the value of life, what they're doing with their lives, and the value of work. And it's causing major shifts, which we think are all good. Now, why aren't we concerned about these reevaluations? Because we think it's time. We also believe that the current inflation spike is due to fear-based labor and supply chain disruptions that are a direct result of the COVID crisis. We think these disruptions will recede with proper fiscal and monetary policies. Proper fiscal policies are those that support the allocation of health care broadly across the labor force and across the economy. They're fiscal policies that encourage the redistribution of income to people who need it, and also fiscal policies and spending that focuses on repairing the physical infrastructure as well as the social infrastructure. Now, from a monetary policy perspective, we think that fair monetary policies will include the Black maternal mortality reparation facility that we have proposed, which is a facility to finance the needed decline in elevated levels of Black maternal mortality. We also think that current labor and supply chain disruptions and the pandemic are not directly comparable to earlier ones, given globalization, which hollowed out U.S. manufacturing. It showed that you need to have manufacturing capacity no matter what in your geography. Globalization also served to reduce wages over time over the course of the past 30 or 40 years, and it resulted in increased income inequality. We think all of these things are negative, but we think that this crisis is an opportunity to redress a lot of those imbalances. We also think that part of the issue has been the elevated levels of unethical business behavior, as evidenced by the prior occupant of the White House. It is our hope that this crisis will lead to re-evaluations of business activity and business behavior as well. Finally, let us note our contention that inequality is now the greater risk, not inflation, not protecting the financial standing of a small group of mainly non-minority individuals and institutions. We believe this perspective will grow in both appeal and implementation from an economic policy perspective over the course of the next 12 months. And we think that that's much needed. We think that that is good. So net net, we believe that the economic situation for Black businesses is good. Now we move on to reviewing the economic situation for businesses in the state of Texas overall. Here we see the number of new firms in the state in 2021 by industry. We note the increase in trucking firms in the state of Texas, of real estate management and investments, also restaurants. We believe that this activity is directly related to the reformation of certain businesses that have been closed. Of course, from the trucking perspective, that sinks into the information that we and others have been receiving about logistics issues and opportunities in logistics. In point of fact, you might note that one of the sectors that we see growing in terms of new businesses is in the state of Texas is logistics. So this confirms some of the supply and transportation disruptions that are active right now and the response of the business sector to creating new firms in that area. So net net, this chart showing the number of new Texas business firms in 2021 is consistent with other information that we've seen and that we've reviewed concerning the current economic situation nationally. We believe that these are overall some of the areas of greatest opportunity currently. For Black firms in the state of Texas, we've seen growth in a number of areas related to healthcare. This, once again, is consistent with overall our economic outlook for Black businesses in the U.S. and for Black businesses in the state. Basically, we've seen the replacement of personnel in certain areas that are directly at risk, directly providing services into certain sectors that have been impacted by the pandemic, notably physicians, as well as nurse practitioners. We also see growth in the number of churches and restaurants. Once again, we believe that the fact that restaurants are number 4 in the number of new businesses in the state is related to the replacement of restaurants that had been shut down. Likewise, we also see opportunities for dentists and for pharmacists in the state, according to the data that we've reviewed. Generally consistent nationwide with respect to opportunities for Black businesses and also opportunities for growth in 2021 and 2022. Now, one of the reasons why we have not been surprised by the data on the prior chart is because of this chart, which is our 2020 analysis of coronavirus impact on minority businesses, both from a financial and from a social perspective. This chart shows the areas that have the highest social impact and social return with respect to minority businesses overall, specifically Black businesses, but also covering businesses owned by members of other ethnic groups. Health is number 1. Health has the highest return of any business or social activity, for not only for minority businesses, but for the society overall. Secondarily, education. And health and education are closely related with respect to their social impact. So knowing this, seeing this impact over the course of 2019, 2020, we have not been surprised to see a growth in Black healthcare areas, Black nurse practitioners, pharmacists, dentists, and other healthcare related professions. We believe that those opportunities will continue to grow over 2022, 2023, 2024, as there is a replacement, a need for replacement of personnel in those sectors who might have gotten exhausted and also may have decided to do something else. So we believe this is a critical area for Black businesses in particular. As we normally do, we have taken a look at the location of black firms and executives in the state of Texas. No surprises here. Most of those firms and executives are located in really four cities: Dallas, Houston, Austin, and San Antonio, with some other areas of concentration to the north and to the west of the state. But for the most part, those four urban geographies are where the concentration of both black firms and black executives are currently. In 2021, we expect that to continue through 2022. And this is a map showing the location of the black population in the southeastern portion of the United States of America. We note what's traditionally been called the Black Belt, running from North Carolina to South Carolina, through to Georgia, to Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas, the kind of eastern part of the state there. We think this is important. We think that the Black Belt feeds into the state of Texas and represents an opportunity from that perspective. Also, we'd like for you to notice the heavily black county that's located there on the northern part of the shoreline of the state of Texas, right next to Louisiana, I believe that is, or Mississippi. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that geography a little later. We think it has critical importance and elevated potential currently. And now a note on data. This is a response to us from the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, where we asked them for information on Texas black business activity. The Fed Dallas responded that they didn't have any information on business activity of black firms in the state of Texas. We think this is another area opportunity for advocacy to encourage them to start to get that data. For 2021 and 2022, one of the areas that we have been reviewing has been the corporate social responsibility profile of Texas corporations, given some of the volatility around social and business issues in the state. For example, on October 7th, Elon Musk announced that he was moving Tesla from California to Texas. This follows a long line of corporations that have made a similar move. These include Oracle, Hewlett Packard, and Charles Schwab. The Texas Economic Development Department noted that there are 37 relocation inquiries and programs currently underway. We think this increased corporate presence in Texas is problematic for the country overall, given the extremist social policies of Texas Governor Abbott. The governor has basically been responsible for a number of policies that are not necessarily business friendly or human friendly. These include allowing anyone 21 or older to carry handguns without training or licenses. These include efforts to block public access to the ballot, and also to prevent public schools from requiring masks in the middle of a deadly pandemic. We think that this is problematic. Now, we base our concerns not on the political, but on the economic. One economist has calculated that these restrictions, certainly the voting restrictions alone, will cost the state $31.4 billion and be responsible for the destruction of almost 250,000 jobs. We don't think that's sustainable. Now, not all Texas corporations are opposed to these restrictive extremist social policies, however. AT&T, Comcast, and CVS donated to efforts to put the Texas abortion restrictions in place. Still, the majority of American corporations oppose the conservative social policies that have been put into place in the state of Texas. Most Americans believe that corporations need to be more socially engaged. The survey found that 81% of Americans think that corporations should take action on social issues. Now, from our standpoint, our analysis indicates that current expectations that the American population expects corporations to take action on social policies that are somewhat less restrictive or liberal, if you will, that may be wrong. Americans might actually be saying that they want corporations to support conservative policies. Time will tell. But the bottom line is that we expect corporations to get more engaged around social issues, as we saw not only with the abortion laws in the state of Texas, but also with the $67 billion that was dedicated and devoted to Black Lives Matter. So this is something that we will be keeping our eyes on. We think that this will have a marked impact on business activity for both black businesses and for majority businesses in the state itself. And note, we talked about data in an earlier slide or on an earlier slide. You should know that one of the things that we do here at Create Investment Research is we look at alternative data sources, one of which is Yelp. Yelp has an excellent survey of Texas trends that we utilize. We also utilize data from Facebook, from LinkedIn, and from Twitter to help us understand the economic outlook, not only for black businesses, but for all businesses, and not only for the state of Texas, but nationwide. In terms of other opportunities that we see coming down the pike for black businesses, both nationwide and in the state of Texas, we encourage black businesses to look at agriculture, aquaculture, and specifically seaweed farming. We believe that this will be a potent area for potential growth over the course of the next decade. We are tracking certain policies that are being put into place in the EU, the European Union, which are going to lead to the reduction in phosphate or traditional fertilizers. And we understand, it is our belief, that one of the potent substitutes for phosphate-based fertilizers is seaweed. And we think that this area is ripe for participation, for activity by black firms. Recall that county on the sea, on the coast of the state of Texas that we pointed to on an earlier slide. This is what we meant. We think that you have the geographic presence to be able to stick a flag in the ground with respect to this industry and to move forward just as demand significantly increases for aquaculture and for products related to seaweed in use as a fertilizer. So we are encouraging black firms in the state and elsewhere to seriously consider, seriously review opportunities in seaweed farming. For more information on the topics that we covered during this economic forecast, let us refer you to some of our latest research. Our paper on Texas corporations 2021 is available online, as is our analysis of inflation. The other areas that we've been active in concern current developments with respect to black business funding, the Minority Equity Opportunity Acquisition Fund in particular. We covered that in an article in Black Enterprise recently. We've also recently completed research on drug pricing and why drug pricing programs have not led to a an increase in black life expectancy. And it basically the rationale for reforming some of those programs to make them more effective with respect to their impact on Black life expectancy. We've also been engaged in the courts, in the U.S. Court of Appeals, in looking at the impact that banking activities have had on the Black community and encouraging repair of some of that damage. Finally, and most importantly, I would say, we also want to point your attention to our maternal mortality reparation facility for Black women. This is a new tool that we're working on that we hope will have the ultimate impact of reducing Black maternal mortality, which we know is at an elevated rate relative to white maternal mortality. We believe that there are certain tools, certain initiatives, certain efforts that can be put into place that will have a significantly positive impact in reducing Black maternal mortality. We've outlined it as such. Please take a look at the link shown. In addition to the preceding research, let us point your attention to some of our ongoing research efforts and resources. Number one of which would be our class on investing, which is hosted by Udemy. We also have a class on how to finance a Black woman-owned business in 2021. We actually created that class in 2018, or in the process of updating it, but what we found is that the advice, the data, the recommendations that we made then are especially relevant now. I'd also refer you to our research on opportunity zones, a community development program put into place by the prior administration, which we question and which we have some concerns about. We also have research on crowdfunding and further research on impact investing, Bitcoin and blockchain, and also research on corporate pledges for Black Lives Matter. We were the first firm to calculate that there were 67 billion in pledges for Black Lives Matter. We have been active in tracking those pledges to make sure that the dollars are going to where these corporations are say that they're going. Finally, there's our link for you to purchase Bitcoin through a platform called Coinbase. We encourage you to certainly consider this as an opportunity, as an option, and we'll talk about that a little later when we get to our investment recommendations or our investment thoughts for 2021 and 2022. Now, our recommendations for 2021 and 2022 are as follows. We believe that the business environment for Black businesses, both in Texas and nationwide, is strong. We also don't believe that it will last. We've seen this movie before. We know that there tends to be a diminution in attention placed on Black businesses. So, while this environment is strong, we encourage Black businesses to take advantage of it. Go to helloalice.com and review all grant, loan, and support programs that are listed on the website. Apply for as many and participate in as many as you can while this opportunity exists. We also believe it's important to support Black women, and from that perspective, we believe that the website Fund Black Founders is a good one to do that. It's run by Black women. Many of the crowdfunding campaigns that are on the platform are run by Black women. We think it's an excellent way to support the economic development of Black women-run businesses for us, by us, without having to go to external, non-minority sources of financing. Now, we mentioned supporting or getting engaged in or looking at seaweed farming in the state of Texas and other states as a way of getting engaged in new, sustainable areas where there are low barriers to entry, but that also have great cachet from an environmental perspective. we strongly encourage those who are able to do so and to look at that opportunity. Now, from an investment perspective, and also from a business financing perspective, we suggest as follows. If you are able, borrow now while interest rates are relatively low before they go up. We do anticipate that interest rates will be increasing over the course of the next 1, 2 to 3 to 5 year time period. We think that rates are going higher. So if you need business capital and if you're able to do so, borrow now. Lock in 30-year fixed rate loans. The source that we suggest are credit unions. We know that credit unions have been far friendlier to black businesses than other sources, and even then, we know that black businesses still have a hard time getting loans from credit unions, but we would definitely suggest that credit unions be your first stop. On the investment side, as we have said for the prior 8 years that we have given this talk, we think the Vanguard S&P 500 fund is a very good one for most black businesses, most African American individuals from a long-term perspective. We also are on record as recommending that black businesses and black individuals buy Bitcoin. In point of fact, in September of 2019, Bitcoin was valued at roughly $8,200. As of October 25th of 2021, Bitcoin was valued at $62,000. So as a business financing strategy, there is none better for us, we believe. We also believe that there is more room on the upside with respect to the pricing of Bitcoin. In point of fact, as we look at the structure that was set up by the person who created Bitcoin, we believe that their equilibrium Bitcoin price is $1 million per Bitcoin. So if we're right, if it goes to $1 million and it's currently priced at $62,000, that's obviously a buy. That's obviously relatively cheap. Now, there's no guarantees that we're right about this. It could just as easily go to zero as it could go to $1 million. Still, yet and still, we believe, based on past experience, that this is a tool that you can buy and hold and utilize to finance black businesses. This is what we've been encouraging for some time now, certainly for the past 8 years, with respect to black business financing options. We've been opposed every step of the way by black banks, by black organizations, by others who've claimed that this is a risky strategy. Well, anytime you have an investment vehicle that goes from $8,000 to $62,000, basically in 2 years, the risk is somewhat limited. But still, this is not a strategy or an investment option for those with limited, super limited resources. But we definitely still encourage black firms, black businesses, black individuals to look at Bitcoin and to purchase it if you are able, if it makes sense for you, if you have the cash. So, we want to thank you all for your time.